And we are live. I was about to say oh my goodness, but oh my goodness, we are live. Like it's a surprise every day. It shouldn't be at this point because we are live every weekday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hello, every beautiful body out there. My name is Blair G. Hervey. I am the founder and CEO of The Corporate Strategist. As always, I'm joined by my colorful co-host, my bestie, my soul friend of 20 plus years, and catch this, the corporate strategist, independent consultant, DEIBA speaker, and self-proclaimed diversity geek, D'Angelo Crane. Say hi, D.
Hello. I love that you added all of that to there. Hello, my grace to my will.
Yeah.
You know I gotta do it every day for you. I am always excited to come and bring a little light, love, and laughter to this Black Diva collective stage, as always. What's going on with you today, lady? What's the news? What's the blues?
Well, you set up our sunny segment in a different way. I like that one. Well, if you're asking, I keep touching my mouth and this side of my face because I feel like a tear is coming down. My face is numb from here up because I went and I, like a grown person, I had to go get a crown, right? A little temporary. And I'm like, ooh, if I drink water, it dribbles out the side of my mouth. But how's my face holding up? I think
it looks good, but let me just tell y'all about this lady. She works us to death. She don't care if we blind, crippled, crazy, coming running from a meeting, coming from the dentist's office, whatever it is. Just get you. Even if you can't talk, if you can just be like, show up in the place. That's what it is every day at 12 p.m. Central. What is Central Pacific time and 3 p.m. Eastern time? Every single day, we're here.
Okay. Now, and I love that you say that. I'm the little engine that could, right? I'm the little caboose that's along. I am the challenger, but I think about myself in this way from the episode, one of the last episodes of Dave. Have you ever watched Dave?
Dave.
Okay, so Lil Dicky is a rapper. He's a white rapper, and he actually has some very satirical fun. He's very lyrical, actually. I would love to have him on here. But his show, Dave, which is his born name, is about him and his journey being on tour and his team. And one of the last episodes, they show this documentary. And in that documentary, it was about them being on tour. And you could see the real Dave and the real essence of him. And he was like, no, I don't like that. And you could see the people that are joining along with him on his journey talk about how much he pushes them and how he's a D to work for and how, it's a real challenge being on tour with him. But at the end of it, they say, we love working with Dave because I wouldn't be where I am without that type of encouragement, without that type of push. So I hope at the end of this journey, when y'all gather around my bed, honey, when y'all looking real good at the funeral, hopefully it doesn't take that long. Y'all can always say that she always pushed me to be my best. And so.
Well, honey, it's not taking that long. I think there's 142,000 people who said, yes, she's pushing me and she's helped me along my journey. I'm one of those people, but it doesn't mean I can't talk about you making sure that we're here every single day. I don't even have enough clothes for every single day, honey. You're going to see this shirt again next week. So I don't want nobody to be like, wait a minute, is that a rerun? No, it's not a rerun. It's that this is all I got. That's all I got every single day.
And they say a lot for you because you have a lot of clothes, child. But you know what? I'm so glad. I'm thankful that you're dedicated. But I also have learned a lot about leadership in showing up every single day, because I know if I don't show up, then that gives other people an excuse to slack off as well. So that's just the part of the work that we all do. And I know that you do it in your role as well, as a diversity geek and in your role. But let me ask you, how is your heart? How is your head? I would ask you how your wardrobe is, but we know it's limited at this point. How are you today, Dee?
I am fantastic today. One of the things we're doing is we're going to be engaging with over 300 interns that we have. And some of the interns, we have a program called Cyber Futures and my company I work at, where we go and recruit interns from HBCUs and MSI. So it's really exciting. So literally after I leave today, I'm going to run and meet 300 interns and talk with them about the great work we're doing around diversity, equity, and inclusion here at the company. And also they're going to get to introduce to some of our business resource group leaders. listeners. So I'm really excited that we're going to do that. So that my heart is excited about that. Now, let me tell you about my head, my literal head. You know this, I've been doing my own hair, trying to save money for the last 5 months. Well, I haven't done it in the last month and a half, but finally on Saturday I'm going to the salon. And let me tell you something. It's one of those moving moments in the salon. I don't know if anyone else out there listening can, but when the shampooing is what gets you. It's like that is the when someone else shampoos your head, it's amazing. It's a blessing.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
so that's what where my like literally where my head is excited about. It's going to get touched by a professional, and so so that's always a blessing.
That is called self-care. Yes, I need to make a little haircut appointment for these sides because they're getting a little exposed. But yeah,
It looks good.
your business. You know how Black people are. We love to get our hair done, honey. It's something about us and keeping a fresh cut. I feel like a whole new person. Listen, but I'm gonna tell you
Hey,
what.
we'll be brand new next week. I'm gonna act like I don't know you. I'm gonna have a new shirt on, but I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm gonna have new shirt because I'm gonna have new hair. So I'm gonna be like, oh, my name is D'Angelo Crane.
That's exactly what we are talking about today. But I love how you can choose your code switch, and maybe it's not for an intended purpose, but it's about how you feel about yourself and how you can let your light truly shine because of how you're feeling about yourself on the outside. But the essence of code switching that we're going to talk about today, I'm sure it'll go in a plethora of different reasons or branches. Help me out. A plethora of different ways.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But we're going to talk about, the impact of having to or feeling the need to code switch when you're in the workplace. So do you want to kick us off, or does that take us in the right direction?
No, I think it's in the right direction, but I want to just go way back a little bit to kind of share with you what I'm thinking about the conversation. Because I want to also preface this with you all. We're sharing today. If there's someone who's an expert in code switching and has read up on it, come on the show. We'd love to welcome you on. Where we're speaking from the reference point of experiences and what we read and what we shared with others. So Blair, I was thinking about this today as we thought about this topic, and I was like, well, really, when I started code switching, I didn't even know it was code switching, but I remember being, I think, 7 years old and having to play football. And at that time of my life, I can admit that I already had some more feminine characteristics about myself. So I thinking back to that, I wonder how I showed up on the football field being a 7-year-old. Did I have to not cry? Did I have to be a little bit more, masculine? Feel like I need to be more masculine or macho, whatever we just determined was masculine and macho at the time, right? Versus being true to who I was. So even then I was code switching so I could get along with the more dominant culture of what the team was. What did people expect from me being on this team? They didn't expect for me to cry when I got tackled. They expected me to get up, suck it up, and be able to go back out there and not really be in touch with that vulnerable side of myself, right? And so I think that's when I think about code switching, is that we don't know that sometimes we're doing it. And also, I think about this as I was reading up on this. Sometimes people are doing it, and we'll probably talk about this around for survival, right? For survival of their jobs, for survival of their livelihood, whatever it may mean. But we're really, code switching, when we think about it, and we'll talk about this, right? It really came from how African Americans show up at work, or Black folks show up at work. However, as we've learned more about the topic, like I've shared this story, we've really been code switching sometimes long before then, before we even got into the workplace.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And it definitely goes back further than that as well. So for anyone who's not familiar, so if you are, a coder and you're like, they're not using this term in the right way. We're not talking about code switching in that way, y'all. We're talking about
Wait, code switching and coding? Is there a term called code switching? Oh, I'm have to look that up. I didn't know that. Okay.
Google it again, but now every time I Google it, code switching is in the form of linguistics and have you show up at work. But yes, there is a different way, of course, to code switch. But what we're referring to is code switching in the way in which a member of an underrepresented group, like you said, consciously or unconsciously adjust their language, their syntax, their grammatical structure, their behavior and appearance to fit into a more dominant culture. So I love how you actually took it all the way back to when you were 7 years old. I think of two main things in my adolescence that came up. I don't remember a lot of things about, conversations between my mother and I because she passed away when I was 12 years old. But I do remember one time, I have no idea what we were talking about, but I was like, we were going back and forth and I was like, I am not Black. I am African American. And I feel like she would have slapped me down the stairs. But and now I actually say the opposite. And so I feel like at a very young age, I always felt like in different spaces, I knew who I was and I knew how I wanted to show up. But when I moved from Dallas, Texas to Louisville, Kentucky, I suddenly had an aha moment that whatever I was doing definitely was not how other people showed up. Because I heard some terms for the first time, like, you know, why are you using this white voice? Why are you dressed like a white girl? You know, like I had the little metal balls around my neck as a necklace before I guess it was popular, but I felt like I had to switch it up. So I started using this New York accent for some reason. I do not know why. So instead of trying to assimilate, I was like, well, let me make it seem like I'm from somewhere else so that they understand this new person, I guess. So I think we make this adjustment. And for some people, it can be confusing. But like you said, for some people, they accept it because you are assimilating. And they're like, check, you fit in.
And you know what I heard from that is that need to code switch or simulate came from a place of how do I belong, right? Versus if we think about now that we're older, you know, what does code switching mean now looks like for us and what are the reasons why we're doing it? So really, like I said, when our shared stories is that we wanted to belong and be a part of the dominant culture and the in crowd and be acceptable by our friends or even our own community because we showed up a little differently than they were expecting or than most people were in that particular community. So yes, I think it's so when you think about that around that's how you showed up. How do you think about as you become an adult? When was the first time you remember that you had to code switch as an adult? When you think about like career survival.
Oh my goodness. Well, before we get into that, just to clarify as well, so like you said, there's so many reasons for code switching, and a few of the things that I found, it could be the mood of the person. So maybe again, you're showing up in a certain way because of how you're feeling. To clarify, to explain, to show their identity, or to hide their identity, or to quote other people. So it's a lot of different ways that reasons that people code switch, and it's not always harmful. But the way that I can first remember, I believe, if I really sit and think about it, and a way that kind of showed up in a harmful way for me was definitely dress and attire. I remember dating someone way back. And they always used to say, you know, you don't know how to dress for certain environments. Like, you're not going to get that job, or you're not going to get far if you keep dressing like that. And I was like, girl, boo. And I continued to dress how I wanted to dress. But I also noticed that in certain environments, it was received in certain ways. I remember a leader at one point, I came into a meeting and she said, why are you dressed like that? No. I apologize. She said, what do you have on? I said, well, I thought it was just a cute little pencil skirt at the top. The mixed prints ain't for you. So I felt like there was a time when I had to, you know, wear my more church clothes to work. And I had to dress in a certain way so that I didn't stand out. But I found out with time, it didn't. I mean, you know me. It didn't matter what I wore. I was still going to stand out. And that's why I was just like, forget it. But when did it show up for you in the workplace? Oh, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, Lee. Whew, Jesus, where do I start at? where do I begin? So let me talk about my adult. I think, and I've only worked at three companies in my adulthood. So let's start there. That's just a handful, right? But I think when I first started, my longevity job, my career was at 23, and I think there was points when I continued to ask myself, did I need to cut my hair to get along with the culture of the organization? And did I need to do that to move up? And I also found myself, I think that's the first time I felt myself being the overly happy-go-lucky Black man. Because I remember I was working in an atmosphere where there was many women there, many white women there, and I didn't want to come ever off as threatening, and I need to work with them. So I would be overly, how are you doing today? Talking to everyone every morning, just being my extra bubbly self, and being intentional about every day when I walked in the building, no matter how, some mornings I had to be there at 7 a.m. to get meetings started or to set up things, right? And so I still consciously was like, every day I have to go in and present this image that I'm non-threatening, that I'm welcoming, that you can talk to me. And so it was, and not necessarily that is innate in me, but also what was not innate in me was some days I just wasn't having a good day and I didn't want to talk to you, right? And I didn't want to talk to anyone that day. But I found myself really code switching to this ultra excited, really amicable Black male, instead of really being a person who said, I know my stuff. right? And I don't necessarily have to win you over by building these deeper relationships. I need to win you over by making sure the partnership is good and the work that I'm doing is good, right? And I learned that later on in life. But yeah, I just remember those days having to really push myself at 6 a.m. in the morning sometimes to make sure that I was on always and showing up.
I'll say, well, firstly, I hate that you've had to experience that. So, I'm definitely sending love. I know it was a while ago, and maybe it still shows up for you today. But I'm sure that shows up for you in a plethora of different areas as a Black man, to make sure that you're not going out into this world and being seen as threatening, or someone that should be gunned down, or someone that should be followed in a store. So I extend that love to you, and that empathy. I hate that you have to go through that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. But I didn't even, I mean, these conversations, when you think back, like I've never thought of it that way until we started having, I was like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. This is what has to happen. We're having a therapy session right here live on the air.
Because you got me going way back too. So I was born in Dallas, Texas, raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I know you know this, but this is for the people, right? So in Louisville, I worked at AT&T for 4 years, from like 19 to 23, right? And then I moved to Atlanta. And when I moved to Atlanta, one of the first jobs that I had was knocking on doors. I say it that way. There was more to it than that. But eventually, that's all we did was knocked on doors. But I remember, and this is in my book too, I remember walking in the very first day. I think it was the day of my interview. And there were 2 tall Black men, young Black men, like presenting something in suits. And I'm sure you know who those 2 people are. They know who they are. They're still in my life today. Then there was like a group of people in a circle, and it was a diverse group. There was a young white male, I think, was leading. There was a young Hispanic male. There were 2 white girls, and I'm bringing them up because I want them to know who they are. But they were in the circle, and we ended up doing some work together later on because we were the top salespeople. But I remember what that space was called. It was called Atmosphere. And in Atmosphere, there were certain rules. Number 1, you wore a suit. So everyone had on a suit. Remember, we're all young. You wore a suit.
Oh, was that when I was sending you suits to wear? I was like, you should get this.
Okay. We had to wear a suit. So yes, he bought me clothes for a long time for these reasons, because I didn't like to dress like that. So we had to wear a suit. And then there was this thing called no negging, Negging, no negging out. Like there were people who were let go for negging out. Negging out means you came out from the field. Now, if anybody has worked, that sounded real bad. You came back from the field. But if anyone has knocked on doors, you know that, I mean, those are long hours. It can be hot outside, particularly if you're in Atlanta or Houston or wherever you may be knocking. And then you come back, you've had doors slammed in your face. You've had people cussing you out. You've had guns shown. It's a lot that you can bring back into that environment, but you don't come back to that environment with that negativity. So that no negging out was deeply ingrained in me from a very young age in my career. So when I think about code switching, I think about that. I think about always having a positive attitude. And I think that shows in me today. I know it's the Sagittarius in me, the optimist, but I don't subscribe to that. And so it's taken a long time for me to be much more empathetic and create space for people to share how they're feeling. So I would say that's one way that showed up for me very young. That no negging out, that wearing suits, that making sure that you're always presentable, that got into me young.
The other 2 things that can be, when we think about code switching, as we have learned, like you said, when you gave the definition, right? It's about that being part of an underrepresented group and showing up as a dominant. Did you ever have moments where you couldn't talk about your child at work? And you need to go to work and seem like you was not a parent? Is that ever had something you experienced?
That is a really good one. That was probably more self-inflicted because in the spaces that I worked in sales and in tech, they were predominantly male. They were predominantly white male. And they were predominantly young white male, right? So they definitely couldn't relate. If there were young women or young white women that had children, typically they were married or they were partnered, right? So I would be the only single young Black woman with the oldest child as well. So I've been doing it a lot longer. So I think I got to the point where I did not want to make it an excuse that, I need to get paid X, Y, and Z for daycare, or, I need to leave soon, or I need to make sure I'm at this basketball event. And so that code switching at work definitely in fact impacted my parenting at home. So it's not just about how you're showing up at work, which can be exhausting, but
Yes.
it also plays into, do you bring your work self home? And so I guess that's my question to you. Have you ever experienced where, whoever you are or were at work, you brought that into your relationship or you brought that home?
Ooh, goodness gracious. That's a very deep question there. Goshly. I can't think of certain moments, but I do think of having to be having to be the peacemaker, right? I think that when we think about transition into my life around being the making sure that everyone was okay, right? And I don't necessarily think that's code switching or not code switching, but it can be if that's not innate for you to always do, right? And sometimes, like I said, you need to be the vulnerable person and let your guard down and not be the person that takes care of every single thing in your life, right? Because sometimes you want people to know at work I take care of everything, but at home I'm a little bit spastic, I'm a little bit crazy. But now, I would tell you that I'm at a space um, of growing and being really self-aware of who I am and existing in all spaces. But I think the one thing we were talking about the other day that I'm struggling with right now is, one day I want to be VP of Inclusion and Diversity, right? And the question, and I posted on my LinkedIn about, can I still wear my red, yellow, green, purple to work every day, right? Can I bring my colors to work when so many of the fantastic DEI superstars and leaders that I follow, they are definitely men who are doing fantastic work, but they're also men who wear beautiful gray, blue, tan suits, right? Which I appreciate. I love it. I'm all about it, right? I have all those colors too, but I also have pink suits. So can I wear those things and show up every day? And so when you think about, once again, as I think about code switching, what are the things that you talked, I read this too. It said that sometimes code switching is not harmful. And I want to just talk about that a little bit because I felt like, well, I was trying to think about, I know that it can't be harmful, but I also think about, is it harmful to who you are innately are, right? Like, are you giving up something when you go into code switch because you're trying to grow your career, you're trying to do other things? What are things that you're giving up that maybe you would like to show those things to other people, right?
Oh, I love that question. Let me also say, we both know, I think it's only one person that I can think of, but Jarvis Sam, and hopefully we have him come on at some point, who was a DEI leader at Nike, and now he runs his own firm, but he has rainbow color braids, honey. He's just like, accept me for who I am. So I think it's up to us to make that decision. But going back to your question, I think about, the brother Marcus Carter, who we had on earlier in our season. And Marcus, he's told me before, as we talked about code switching, he said, sometimes people don't have the right or the privilege to have access to our culture. So that's what I said. Sometimes code switching is a mask, or it's the gate to have access to the real me, because that's something we talk about all the time, right? Bring your authentic self to work, bring fully, who you are fully. And we talk about a couple of different facets of that. The safety in doing that, is there really truly safety in that? And then the other part of that is, do you even deserve all of me? And I was like, ooh. So, and when it is, think about harm and all the things you don't have control of in the workplace and in corporate spaces. I think about, wow, especially me being, a controller and that being at the top of my saboteurs. I think about that being something that I actually have control of. Like, I can choose whether or not you get to know all about my family. I can choose whether or not I want to share the most intimate details of what happened to me over the weekend. I can choose whether or not you have access to my real style. Now, is that me, Blair G. Hervey? Absolutely not, because I can't help it. But I love it for people who make that decision and who say for themselves, you know what? I'm going to code switch because that's my choice.
And I would say to you that that's where I just wanted to make sure the work we're doing, the purpose of this DEIBA work, is that people can have that choice, and that they also can have the choice to fully be them authentic self at work and bring all of that. Because the one thing that I tell people all the time, I was really about I love that. Yeah, Bozo St. John. Hey, Brittany. One thing I love about I started to do all the time was start to tell people about that I dated, right? I was like, I was always worked on teams with women who were married and long-term relationships, and they would come and talk about their kids and their weekends. I was like, well, this weekend I went on 2 dates with 2 different people and we had fun, right? And so it's one of those things where for me, it was about how do we normalize having these conversations and not being so uncomfortable with, oh my goodness, he's talking about this, right? But and so I think it's also so it's those two things about how do we make sure we continue to make space where people can be their authentic self, but also choose if they choose not to share all of their authentic self. There's no harm in that, or no harm in choosing to share your full authentic self and not having to code switch. Yeah.
I agree. And I do love what Brittany said there. I mean, we love the Bozes of the world. But I mean, they're far and few in between. And there's the C-level executive is it at Essence or is it at Ebony?
Well, she left now because you introduced me to her, Carolyn Wanga, who that I love. Is that who you took? Yes, I think she's started her own organization now. But one of the people who I shouted out on my LinkedIn post about who I admire for leaning into being her full authentic self and bringing color and fashion and African designers and Black designers to the forefront is something that I talk about this all the time. Like, as I continue to grow, all I want to do is wear beautiful Black designers every day. That's my goal. So yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. I know we only have a couple minutes, but Brittany also said, I think it's less code switching, but more of us practicing self-awareness in the spaces where we have several roles to play as the only in the room. So what I hear from that is intentionality. So when I hear you speaking that you want to display Black designers, that's also a part of your branding. That's also a part of that thought leadership. So when we code switch, there could also be other reasons. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be harmful. It can be that choice in saying, I'm in control of my career and I know that this is intentional. So a couple of things that I read that I'll share with you all. Other reasons that people code switch, or that you may choose to code switch, or you may start code switching or stop. But fear of confirming stereotypes. So I know I stopped doing certain things like showing up late. That was one thing that I was just like, you know what? Code switching, I think that wasn't even about code switching. That was just more about being a good human. But fear of confirming stereotypes. Why are you making that face? Because you're gonna show up late.
No,
if you're gonna show up.
I had choked up a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
To achieve a specific result, so intentionality as well. Because they can't help it. So again, code switching can become a habit. So again, that quote unquote white voice or that professional voice people turn on. Sometimes you don't even hear it. People have said that to me. I'm like, y'all, that's just how I talk. And number 4 is it expresses something that can't be said another way. So just some things to think about, some food for thought.
I love those tips. What I would say to people is what I kind of thought about in my life as I'm thinking about the things I'm going to trade off in my life as I'm deciding how I want to present myself and how I want to continue to grow, is that what is the end goal? What am I trading off and what am I trying to get to by trading this particular thing off about myself or changing whatever space, how I show up in a particular space? But also is that when I get to a space that I'm choosing less and less to code switch, who else am I helping get along that journey as well, right? So I think there's so many people, we talk about people, people talked about Oprah Winfrey in the beginning and her journey and all the things that she kind of had to do. And what we saw was that she code switch, so played the role to get along, so she could say there's some long-term gain here around how can I continue to prop up people such as a Tyler Perry and so many other people who are Black and brown people who need to be talked about and shared. And so now that I've done the things I need to do, right, to get where I need to get to, how do I continue to grow my platform? And her network is there's so many Black talent that she's putting to work with her network, right? And so I just think about, as we think about those trade-offs that we do when we go in every day, just think about what is the end goal of that, and what is your goal, and how are you helping other people along that journey as well?
Yeah, I think about a couple of other entertainers, but I don't know why the ones that come to mind are white entertainers who kind of went into R&B and then they went into pop, like Pink. I was like, what was that about? But again, maybe that was her end, but also we have to give people the opportunity to evolve, right?
Ooh,
so
yeah.
you may go into a scenario or a space or a workspace as one person, and then your leader may say, well, what happened to, well, I've evolved, I've changed. So think about even the work or how you do work, right? You may start off work with, okay, I got to respond to this email within 2 hours, or I got to respond, with a spreadsheet, or I got to have all of this data, because oftentimes we're showing up in that way, right? To make sure that we assimilate, we are getting all of the bonus points. But what you learn about yourself is you best work in a different way. And I think it's really important to start communicating that with people as you become more self-aware, as Brittany said as well.
Oh, that's a whole, because that's a whole thing about, are you code switching saying, oh, I'm a person who can work in groups, when you really are a person who needs to work by yourself, and you get more work done by yourself than you do in group, but you're not effort. So it's really, like I said, what are the trade-offs that people are coming to each and every day? So I just think about that. What's the long-term gain as you think about what you're going to do? So yeah, this is like, we need a part 2 of this conversation. So if anyone wants to come on and talk to us about part 2 of code switching, so we just touched a little bit on it today.
Yeah, actually, we should invite Brittany on. Brittany, if you still out there, girl,
I've been telling all my friends, come on the show, so you can hear less of us and more of you all. Come on the show, you all. All right, Blur. My shout out for today is David L. Walker, who's the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Black Fullness, and Black Fullness is a new group that's all about mindfulness, and so hopefully we can get him on the show to share more about Black Fullness and all the great work he's doing around mindfulness.
I love that. And I love the work that we're doing. Again, I appreciate your dedication each and every day. And I appreciate the support from all of our listeners and all of our viewers. Again, we are here every weekday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for your daily dose of D&B with D&B on the Black Diva Collective. Y'all have a wonderful day. We love you. Bye.